you brought up sort of it used to be an auto play, and now it's becoming less and less of that to bet these teams coming off the bye. Evan did some research for us. Last season, teams with a rest advantage were actually one game under 500, 54, 55 straight up. And then they were 13 games under 500 against the spread. That's the second worst mark against the spread since 2000. And by the way, since PASPA was repealed in 2018, 51% straight up, 48% against the spread. So that is a losing bet since 2018, betting teams with the rest advantage. To your point, is it because they haven't been equitable? But before I actually, let me ask Simon, how have you been thinking about teams coming off a bye or teams having rest advantages the last couple of years?
It's a bunch of ways. Like I told you, I use Warren's book as a major tool for what I'm doing, and that is the sense of adjusting to season win totals and different things like that. Like that Eagles team last year, all the players talked about going to Brazil week one. They felt like they couldn't catch up and get their heads right until their bye week, which was after week four. And you hear every player talk about that, where it's like they couldn't catch their breath. It was just really intense going from your preseason, trying to make the team, get ready for the upcoming season, to you're going to a foreign country. Now you're coming back, and now you're playing, multiple road games. You have a home game here and there. It's a lot, and the bye week helped them catch up. You look at this schedule this year, there's tons of teams having that exact scenario. Long distance travel, a lot going on, and a lot to deal with when they get back. And, for me, I remember last year one that really jumped out was Warren was on it. It was about the Chiefs. The Chiefs got the worst deal we've ever seen any football team get last year, right? They had the most insane schedule, Saturdays, Wednesdays. I mean, I think the only day they didn't play was Tuesday. They might even add a Tuesday game. I don't even know. But it was just insane how their schedule was set up. They were perfect. So we talked on here about that, where there's certain teams we do think it'll affect, and there's other teams with veteran quarterback and veteran head coaches that their leadership can balance that, right? That rest disparity. But there's other teams that it does affect, where we just talked about a young Eagles team. They started 2-2, right? They lost to a not very talented Kirk Cousins in that Atlanta team, and then to a Saints team that we all know were terrible. I mean, not the Saints, Tampa Bay were pretty good, but still close game with the Saints start the season. So it just shows how early in the year these teams, they're not going to be who they are, especially when they're traveling like they are. So, jumps out of the page, Chargers, Chiefs, that's a team that's going to Brazil week one, right? Like we have a lot of things people can look at Warren's book about that type of stuff, where it's like those miles and that stuff does matter and can affect a lot of teams. So that's what's such a big deal to me reading Warren's stuff. It's like you have to look into each team's rest disparity. Even though it's not the end all be all, it's a major tool to have on hand.
Warren,
One
go
thing,
ahead.
Chad, I do want to throw in just some data. I know because you were mentioning Evan Abrams, great research. I just want to throw in some nuggets here real quick before we get into team discussion and other situations. Just the specifics. If you are off of a bye week from 2002 to 2010, you were covering the spread 56% of the time, 7.6% ROI. Since 2017, you're covering the spread 46% of the time, minus 12.2% ROI. So a massive difference off of the bye. The situations where you want to be looking, and Simon mentioned this too about the Chiefs. What I have found is that the better team, usually, obviously in these games, is going to be favored. Favorites, when they have extra rest, that edge becomes amplified. Bad teams that may have extra rest, it doesn't necessarily help them. They don't know the right strategies to use during that extra rest or to take advantage of to get to the level of the good teams. So favorites tend to do a little bit better when they do have extra rest than underdogs or than bad teams do. The other spots to think about here are the short week road games, which we are going to discuss. Short week road games, the last 10 years, those teams, that means like they're playing Sunday and then they play on Thursday on the road, which happens a lot this year. Those teams have covered the spread just 48.3% of the time, which is minus 7.8% ROI over the last 10 years. That's a big deal. 48% cover rate can be a solid spot to bet against these teams, especially when other factors play into it. If that same team, instead of goes on the road, instead of having short rest, they actually have a little bit extra rest than their opponent, all of a sudden they become 54.7% ROI, 54.7% cover rate, which is positive 4.4% ROI. A couple other spots to be aware of. It only happens once this year. 3 games in 10 days. That last game is absolutely brutal. It's a very low sample size. It's going to happen to the Dallas Cowboys once this year, actually on Thanksgiving. Those teams, when it's happened, there's something like 2-9, 2-10 in the last like decade when they've played 3 games in 10 days, which hasn't happened very frequently. And then games after playing on the road Sunday or Monday night and having to come home and play an opponent that has not had to do that, 48.7% since 2013 across over 400 games. So we aren't talking about situations here that are going to scream, 60%, 65% cover rate when you're talking about sample sizes that are a little bit larger, but it is meaningful when you're talking about, and Simon knows this, you know this, Chad, I don't really bet other sports, but I do know that there are people out there that whether they're betting NBA rest spots or MLB rest spots or situations where a team's gone on the road for all these games and then comes back home, like there are spots and edges to be had just based upon general rest situations. So it is a key factor in the NFL, but the key is to understand when it is a factor and when it is not as big of a factor.